Welcome to Engage Math, Lesson 25, Problem 6, where we are simplifying expressions that have fractional exponents. So what you want to keep in mind is something that I wrote at the top of the page in red, and basically that comes from the inside back cover of your workbook. And it's one of the properties of exponents that we can write a fractional exponent and take the denominator of that fractional exponent and make it the index on the radical. At the same time, the numerator right here, m, of the fractional exponent becomes the power or the exponent to which it's being raised. And so let's do some problems. It'll make a lot more sense. I'm going to zoom in on each row, and so we'll do one row at a time, zooming in on that row. So I'm going to leave it so you can see the properties at the top as well. So 8 to the 2/3. So what that really means is we can take the 8 and put it into the radical, and I'm going to raise it to the second power, but I'm going to take the third root of 8. So it's the 2 becomes the exponent, the 3 becomes the index on the radical, and then the 8 goes into the radical as the radicand. So now we're going to start by taking the third root of 8, which we know means what number multiplied by itself 3 times gives us 8, which is 2. So we get 2 to the second, and our final answer is simply 4. Now, one thing I wanted to make sure you see is that I could have also written it in this form, the middle form right here. So I could have said the third root of 64, but it's much harder to think about what number multiplied by itself 3 times gives you 64. So I find it easier to first do the third root of the smaller number and then raise it to the power afterwards. Okay, you'd get the same answer though either way. All right, this one. The index is just 2, the exponent is 1, so we have the square root of 36, just 6, and we're done. Okay, 49 to the negative 1/2. So I'm going to rewrite it as 1 over 49 to the positive 1/2, because we know that a negative exponent can be changed to a positive by putting it on the other side of a fraction line. So now we have 1 over the square root of 49, and we know the square root of 49 is 7, so our final answer for this problem is just 1/7. Okay, I think you know those rules now, so I'm going to kind of go up a little bit on the screen and see that we have 32 to the 4/5. So we know it's the 5th root of 32, and then after that, we're going to raise it to the 4th power. So the 5th root of 32 means which number is multiplied by itself 5 times and gives us 32. And that might take you a little while to think through, but it's a good one to know off the top of your head going forward. 2 to the 5th is 32, and if you do 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, you get 32. So what we end up with here is 2. I don't really need the parentheses, but just so you see, the 5th root of 32 became a 2, and 2 to the 4th is 16, and we're done. Okay, 81 to the 3/4. So I'm going to start by taking the 4th root of 81, and then we're going to cube it. Okay, the 4th root of 81. So you know the numbers are going to be pretty nice. So you can start, like we know it's not 2 because 2 to the 4th is 16. We just did that. But what about 3? 3 times 3 is 9, times 3 is 27. Yes, 27 times 3 is 81. So the 4th root of 81 is 3. So that's the part that's in the parentheses. And again, we don't need the parentheses. I just want you to be able to see that the 4th root of 81 became this 3. And so our final answer is 3 to the 3rd, or 27. And that's it. All right, let's look at the next one. Notice in F, it is not a negative exponent, so we don't put it over a fraction line. It's just the 7th root of a negative 128. Then we're going to take that number and raise it to the 4th. And this is a light bulb problem, by the way. Okay, we already know that the 5th root of 32 is 2. So if the 5th root of 32 is 2, that means that 2 to the 5th is 32. We did that in a previous problem. So 2 to the 6th would be 64. So 2 to the 7th would be 128. So we already know the 7th root of negative 128 must be 2. However, because it's a negative 128, we're going to write it as negative 2. Because negative 2 multiplied by itself an odd number of times will become a negative final answer. Okay, so now we have negative 2 to the 4th. But remember, a negative number raised to an even power becomes a positive because a negative times a negative is a positive. So what we really have, I'm just going to write it out to make sure you see why this will be a positive, times -2 times -2. So this gives us 4, this gives us -8, that gives us a positive 16. So our final answer is a positive 16. Okay, we're on our last row, and it looks like they are all light bulb problems, but no problem. We will handle this. Okay, this time, notice that the negative sign is not being raised to the 1/6 power. Very different than F, where the negative sign was in the parentheses. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to leave that negative off to the left because it's not part of what's being raised to the 1/6. And then we're going to say the 6th root of 64. Okay, the negative is out to the outside. We already know kind of from what we did over here that the 6th root of 64 is simply going to be 2 again. So our final answer is -2. Okay, there was no negative exponent, so we didn't have to put anything over the fraction line until this problem. Now, one way we can change that -2/3 into a positive exponent is by saying 1/1/8 and then making it to the positive 2/3. But I'm going to mention that if we did that, then we would do our keep, change, flip, and you could write that all out. But what I really want you to see is that 1/8 to the -2/3 is exactly the same as the reciprocal of 1/8, which is 8/1, or just 8, to the positive 2/3. So basically, I put the 8 on the other side of the fraction line, the 1 on the other side of the fraction line, and I made the exponent a positive. So now it's not such a bad problem because it's the 3rd root of 8 squared. And the 3rd root of 8 is 2. 2 squared is 4. Great. Okay, let's look at I. So now there's a lot going on in I, but we're going to start by saying 1 over -125 to the positive 1/3 power. The reason we can do that is we put this entire expression on the other side of the fraction line, so the exponent sign changes signs from a negative to a positive. And now I'm going to say 1 over, and notice this time the negative is part of what's being raised to the 1/3 power. So we have the 3rd root of a -125. So what number multiplied by itself 3 times gives us a -125? And you could figure that out, but just for the sake of moving along with the video, it would be a -5 times -5 times -5 gives us -125. So our final answer is just -1/5, or you can say 1 over -5, or you could say -1 over +5. As long as you have one negative sign, you're good to go. Okay, let's go back so you can see all the answers in one video or one screenshot, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us at Engage Math.